Hello and welcome to the Black Hydra here at our channel. So we start a small series of strategy videos, and firstly we're going to start with the Nephilim missions. Here we go one by one for each mission. Take a look at each mission and what kind of playstyle we can expect on those. How does the mission work? How does the mission secondary work? And what kind of generic mission secondaries are possibly a take here, regardless of your faction or whatever it might be. So each video is going to take about 10 to 15, maybe 20 minutes if needed, and it's just a really short hard fact and look at it. So right here I took a photo of the marker placements. Excuse me, but it's not 100% accurate because I had to go very high on the ceiling with my camera, and I have some kind of distortion in my lens, but it should work. So today we're going to start with mission 11 from Grand Tournament 22, Nephilim Strike Force. So Strike Force, talking about 2000 point games here, match play. Over here in Germany it is the basic standard, which actually not only over here, everywhere it's basically the standard. So what do we have here? Quick facts about the mission is we have 6 objective markers on the map. 4 of those are no man's land. No man's land means basically out of any deployment zones. You get 4 points for each of the following circumstances. So if you control 1 marker at the end of your command phase, you score 4 victory points. If you control 2 markers, you get 4 points, and if you control more than the opponent, you get 4 points as well. So each time at the end of your own command phase, not counting battle round 1. Important here is to keep in mind, even if you control only 1 objective and your opponent does control no objective at all, you get 8 points, because you get 4 points for control 1, you get no points for control 2, but you get 4 points for control more. What we see here is the original mission deployment as seen in the Nephilim book. So as I said, we have player A deployment zone, player B deployment zone, we have the no man's land in between, and we have 1 marker each in each deployment zone for each player. No marker on the center of the battlefield, and we have on each flank 2 markers in the no man's land, 16 inch in between them, and almost touching the deployment zones. Here we have a mission secondary, which is called Break Them, Body and Soul, where you get 1 point for each enemy unit destroyed at the end of the battle round, to a maximum of 3 points per player per battle round. So you can indeed score 15 victory points in each battle round from battle round 2 moving forwards. Break Them, Body and Soul can already be scored in battle round 1. So coming back, Recover the Relics is a bit special here. You only get the command point in your command phase if you control 1 or more markers in the no man's land or in your opponent's territory. What that means is, as you see here, the deployment zones scratch on the marker, but you can actually not hold them during deployment. So we'll come to this a bit later, but in order to get the command point, if you're not going first here, you need some units who are infiltrating and standing on the markers eventually. So we will come to that in a minute. So as you see, it's pretty straightforward. 6 markers, hold 1 for 4 in no man's land, 2 in the deployment zones, and that's about it about Recover the Relics. That is the basics of the mission, and now we are taking a closer look of how this might to go and play out, what kind of units you want to have in your list when you know you're going to face this mission in a tournament, and especially what kind of generic secondaries are worth thinking about, always in regard to your list. Obviously, you should be able to handle the secondary in general, but generally speaking, just in regard of that mission, without knowing what your faction is or your opponent is, we're taking a look at what kind of secondary might worth think about. And yeah, we have an 18-inch deep deployment zone, which is 18 times 22 inches, which is actually a pretty huge area, and only covered by one marker in the very center of it. So yeah. So let's talk about the units you want to have here. You want to have units with scout and pregame moves, units with infiltration rules, or units with redeploy and infiltration rules. Generally speaking, just to score, or not to score, but to farm the command point. You know, imagine you deploy and your opponent goes first. He has infiltration units. He will get the CP at the beginning of his command phase, but you won't, because you have no unit which can infiltrate, and you don't occupy any mark in the no man's land. So you will lose the first command point in your opponent's phase, or even if you go first and you don't occupy any no man's land marker, and you will lose out your command point. And this in Nephilim is really crucial. So yeah, generally speaking, you also want to have effective trading units. That's basically part of every list right now. But yeah, the most crucial point here, you need anything with pregame moves, scout moves, infiltration rules, or redeploy and infiltration. Otherwise, you will miss out one command point for sure. Yeah, before we move forward and take a look at what kind of generic mission secondaries we could take, not mission secondaries, just secondaries in general, how can we expect this map to play out? So we have no marker in the center of the board, which means the board might shift. It depends a bit always on the armies which are playing, but we can even expect base trade or flank trade over here. So why that is? So essentially speaking, you could have two armies just waiting at each other, like sisters against Necrons. Both have secondaries which tell the opponent, okay, come for me or I will score. So you will play the two markers in front of your deployment zone, keep your deployment zone, and then you wait, and whoever has the turn after will have a better possibility to win off. So you can have a lot of high scoring games over here, depending on the list, but you can also have lists which are really pressuring over here, and that's basically how the mission will turn out. I've often seen a base trade on this kind of missions, because mission secondaries which play around the middle are most likely not to be taken here, depending on the terrain as well. If the terrain is beneficial for mid objective play, you can do that, but in the most of the cases you won't see center oriented play here. So generic secondaries to consider, obviously, given if you have the tools for it. Let's take a look at the map at what that means. So, in general, the first thing I would call for is raise the binders high. So, in general, on a 6 marker map, this is good. So, especially in the late game, you can raise some markers on some point anywhere on the field, because markers are spread like everywhere except the middle. You can either play your half, what I just said, or just base trade flanks, switch your flank with the opponent, and at any point you will most likely have 2 to 3 markers at your disposal, no matter if you trade the base, like flank or whatever, or if you play your half. At any point given, you will have 3 or 2 markers at your disposal. So playing banners here, as I said, depends if you have the action monkeys for it. Obviously, if you play against an OBSEC heavy army like Necrons, for example, and you are weak on OBSEC, you would think about twice taking banners. But that given, just in generally speaking, you could play banners here for that just mentioned reasons. Then, as I just said, if in the late game the field clears up a bit more, you have a lot of opportunities to raise some banner in the last round, because it's 6 markers. So yeah, raise the banners you will see quite often on this mission, I think so. So the second call I would make is behind enemy lines, which is rarely played on casual games, but yeah. Why behind enemy lines? So you have huge deployment zones, and flank or base trades tend to happen on this mission. So if you have the army which is going to push for base trade, you will most likely have an opponent who will do the same, and that is an indicator for that it could work. Also, the really huge deployment zone of what I said, 18 to 22, you can have options to bring some units into the deployment zone of your opponent. So behind enemy lines really synergize with the base trade and flank change. So if your game plan is set, you should decide really early on. You can really go for banners behind enemy lines, whatever it might take. So another thing in line is actually Warp Ritual, but here it's a bit depending on the opponent's list and also depending on the terrain. So the middle is not as occupied as usual. This is one of the few missions where there is no marker in the middle actually. So if you have fast army like Eldar or Thousand Suns, you can actually warp time a unit after doing the action or whatever, or bring it back at some point. Eldari can do it. If you have a fast unit which can do the warp ritual in the middle, and you have terrain which is benefiting for this, you can actually play it, because you can go really fast to one of the two objective markers in front of your deployment zones, which you will occupy anyway. So Warp Ritual can be a take here, but it's not a must take. It really depends on your opponent's list and on the terrain on the map, if you have the middle free and the tools in your list to make this work. But you can do it, because you can always go back to one of those two markers, which are frankly really near the center, but not in the center. And the center is not so occupied to cause you any troubles on this. So, yeah, let's go and quickly summarize it. It was a really quick go through. So, of course, I'm not talking about assassination here. I'm not talking about no prisoners or grind them down, because those are really secondaries which have nothing to do with deployment zones, marker setup, or whatever. I could talk about engage at all fronts over here, but this would rather be not be a good pick here, because you will most likely focus on one flank. You only have two edges in your deployment zone, and the third quarter of the table is already far away from your deployment zone. So I'm really talking about generic mission secondaries which are benefiting from the deployment zone. So that's why we're not talking about assassination and stuff right here. I also don't want to talk about mission specifics, faction specifics, because this is just a general look at the missions. So again, let's quickly summarize it. So quick facts: 6 objective marker, 4 in no man's land, hold 1 for 4, 2 for more, 2 or more. Destroy an enemy unit. So you want to have good trading units, cheap trading units. Recover the relics. You need infiltration and preoccupy the objective markers in order to get your CP, and you always have to keep that in mind when playing this mission. Markers are not sticky, so means that you always have to hold them, and you only get the CP if you control the marker in the beginning of your opponent's of your command phase. That is important. So yeah, that was about it. So this was the first mission. I hope you like the format. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the description below, and I will be happy to answer them. So what will follow is we will go through all the Nephilim missions. We will have different tactical videos and so on. We also intend to do more battle reports in English, but English is our second language. We run, as you possibly know, a German YouTube channel, which is also linked down. We have a fairly amount of subscribers. It's for a German speaking channel, it's alright, but it's small. And we are competitive oriented, and we try to do more battle reports in English as well, but we have a lack of players who want to play in English. So if you're from Germany or somewhere northern Germany, speak English and search a group to play with. We have a couple of foreign players here who enjoy playing in English a lot more than playing in German. So we hope you like the content. If so, please leave a comment, subscribe and like, and we need your feedback to improve our content, and just let us know what we could do to make this more interesting, and if that was a good start for it. That's it for now. Thank you for listening, and See you soon on our channel. Thank you.